Philippines just won the battle that changes everything. Is China finished? The headline flashed across screens worldwide. It was a moment few dared to predict. The world had watched, tensely, as the Philippines and China stood toe-to-toe in the contested waters of the South China Sea. Now, the underdog had triumphed, sending shockwaves through Asia and beyond. This wasn't just a victory, it was a turning point. For years, China's presence in the South China Sea seemed unshakable. Filipino fishermen, Coast Guard and Navy ships were often shadowed, harassed, and outnumbered. The international community watched, often silent as Beijing tightened its grip. But on this day, everything changed. The confrontation happened near the Scarborough Shoal, a flashpoint for years. The Philippine flag now waved over contested waters, a symbol of newfound resolve. Across the islands, people took to the streets, waving flags and celebrating a national triumph decades in the making. In Washington, Tokyo, Canberra, and European capitals, leaders scrambled for statements. The question on everyone's mind: what comes next now that the Philippines has stood its ground and won? The months before the battle felt like the quiet before a typhoon. Chinese vessels, both military and civilian, swarmed the region. Maritime militia ships patrolled the disputed shoals, intimidating Filipino fishermen and Coast Guard patrols. The Philippine government filed diplomatic protests, but China ignored them, continuing to build artificial islands and fortify its claims. On the ground, or rather, on the water, life was tense. Filipino crews faced daily harassment, radio warnings O Dr. Wam, Surstutsti, O Okstakshi, Taksiklai, Idoksi Atstatschats, Obriwat swept across waves, and water cannons fired without warning. Courage was tested by the hour. The world's busiest shipping lanes seemed on the brink of chaos. Every day, the risk of a spark igniting wider conflict grew bigger. Yet, beneath the surface, something had shifted. The Philippines was not backing down. New alliances were quietly forged with the United States, Japan, and Australia. Joint military exercises increased. Supplies, intelligence, and support flowed into Filipino hands. The world's eyes grew sharper, watching for the next move. The stage was set. Tensions rose, but the Philippines stood firm. When the moment came, they were ready to defend their waters, whatever the cost. It began before dawn. Philippine vessels moved with purpose, their mission to resupply and reinforce their outpost on the contested shoal. Chinese ships blocked their path, forming a menacing wall of steel. The world watched via satellite feeds and breaking news alerts. This wasn't just about rocks and water. It was about freedom and sovereignty. As the sun rose, the standoff escalated. Chinese Coast Guard ships tried to ram and encircle the Filipino convoy. But this time, the Philippines was prepared. Their ships maneuvered skillfully, evading blockades. Filipino Marines, armed and determined, stood ready on deck. Loudspeakers blared messages of resolve in Tagalog and English. Then, the moment of truth arrived. A Chinese vessel fired a water cannon, knocking a Philippine flag into the sea. Instantly, Filipino sailors dove in, rescuing the flag and raising it high. This act, captured on live television, became the symbol of their resistance. The world cheered as the outgunned but unbroken Filipinos pressed forward. After hours of tension and near collisions, the Chinese ships pulled back. The Filipino convoy reached the shoal, resupplied their outpost, and raised their flag once more. Against all odds, they had prevailed. What changed the outcome? It wasn't firepower, it was grit, planning, and international backing. The Philippines relied on smart tactics. They used smaller, faster vessels to outmaneuver Chinese ships. Their crews trained for months, simulating blockades and hostile encounters. Every detail was rehearsed. Behind the scenes, allies played a vital role. US and Japanese surveillance planes tracked the confrontation. Real-time intelligence fed into Filipino command centers. Satellite phones crackled with advice and support. The world's eyes were watching, and so was China. The risk of harming Filipino sailors, under global scrutiny, forced Beijing to hesitate. Most important of all was the spirit of the Filipino people. They refused to be intimidated. Social media campaigns rallied support at home and abroad. Atin ito, this is ours, became a viral chant. The courage of the sailors inspired a nation and signaled to the world that the Philippines would not be bullied. This unity and resolve, paired with clever strategy and global solidarity, became the turning point. The Philippines had shown that even the smallest nation could stand up to a giant. The aftermath was immediate and, honestly, electric. The US president and leaders from Japan, Australia, and the European Union issued swift statements. They praised the Philippines for standing up for international law and freedom of navigation. Sanctions were threatened against any further Chinese aggression. Suddenly, Manila went from being seen as a small regional player to a symbol of resistance. In Southeast Asia, neighbors watched closely. Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia, also locked in disputes with China, openly celebrated the Filipino victory. Their own coast guards received new orders to defend national waters with greater confidence. ASEAN, often divided, found new unity in the face of China's setback. Media outlets around the globe splashed dramatic headlines. Analysts debated what this meant for the future of the region. Was this the start of a new era, or just a brief moment of hope before another storm? Everywhere, the narrative had changed. The Philippines' victory didn't just shift the balance at sea, it rewrote the rules of how small nations could face powerful neighbors and win. The victory triggered a wave of strategic shifts. In Washington, defense officials reviewed alliance commitments. More military aid and training were pledged to the Philippines. Japan and Australia announced joint patrols in the South China Sea. The Quad, an alliance of the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, stepped up coordination. In Asia, smaller countries grew bolder. Vietnam increased patrols near its claimed reefs. Indonesia began joint drills with United States and Japanese forces. Even distant powers, like the United Kingdom and France, sent warships on so-called freedom of navigation patrols, signaling support for open seas. China, once seen as unstoppable, now faced resistance on all sides. Its 9-line claims looked less certain. The cost of bullying neighbors had gone up. The region's smaller players realized they could work together, and with outside allies, to protect their interests. The game had changed. No longer was China the only power setting the rules. The Philippines' victory opened the door to a more balanced, multipolar Asia. In Beijing, the reaction was swift and uneasy. State media downplayed the loss, calling it a temporary setback. But behind closed doors, officials scrambled for answers. The Chinese public, long used to stories of national strength, questioned how a smaller neighbor outmaneuvered their navy. China's first move was diplomatic. Ambassadors delivered stern protests to Manila and its allies. Economic threats followed. Trade slowdowns, new tariffs, and hints at sanctions. But these measures couldn't hide a deeper truth. China's aura of invincibility had cracked. Military planners reviewed strategies. Could they reclaim the initiative without risking a wider war? For now, China avoided direct conflict, wary of global backlash. Instead, it increased cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns, seeking to sow division among the new alliance. Yet, beneath the surface, uncertainty lingered. Was this defeat just a stumble, or the start of a long decline in Chinese influence? The world watched, waiting for China's next move. Across Asia, hope mingled with caution. Many believed the Filipino victory marked a new era. Small nations could now challenge larger powers, if they stood together and had strong allies. The South China Sea, once seen as China's backyard, felt more open and contested. But challenges remained. China was still powerful, economically and militarily. Its leaders could adapt, seeking new ways to pressure neighbors. The risk of escalation, or even open conflict, was real. Regional stability still depended on wise diplomacy and careful calculation. For the Philippines, the win brought pride and responsibility. They had become a symbol for other nations under pressure. Their leaders now faced tough choices: how to secure gains, avoid provoking a backlash, and build lasting peace. No one doubted the world had changed, but whether it was a dawn of lasting freedom or just a temporary break in the clouds, only time would tell. The ripple effects spread far beyond Asia. In Europe and America, policymakers rethought their approach to China. Trade, investment, and security strategies shifted. The global order, shaken by the rise of China, now seemed more unpredictable and open to change. Other small nations studied the Philippines' example. Could they replicate this success in their own disputes, from Africa to the Arctic? The idea that might makes right no longer seemed unbreakable. The Philippines basked in newfound respect, but with victory came new risks. Would China strike back harder in the future? Could alliances hold under pressure? The world braced for new confrontations, even as it celebrated a rare triumph for the rule of law. One thing was certain: the battle in the South China Sea had changed everything. The future of Asia, and perhaps the world, would never be the same.